Okay, it's Friday, November 11th. This is an end of the day and end of the week SPY recap. You can see here today we close up green again after a big green day yesterday, which was a big gap up and a continuation. We stayed above the midpoint of the prior day. We headed higher. If we look at the the 15-minute chart, we have a nice, at the bottom of the range, the pre-market range, we have a red to green move that made one move up. We came down and actually held and then had a secondary move up on the day. So it wasn't a classic a momentum move right out of the gates above the high of the pre-market range, but it was certainly the type of move where this first red to green kind of you expect it to work up to the top of the pre-market range when it starts near the bottom, and then as we came down and had another move up, again maybe a tricky trade here to jump in thinking we were going to test those highs again. It wasn't necessarily the orderly pullback. It was more of a trading range in here, but since we were at the bottom of the range, it ended up going again. And there were a lot of individual stocks. I just quickly click along the board that gave you good trades along. Like I traded Amazon today, and that was more of a classic one up, orderly pullback up too. Other stocks like Netflix were very strong out of the gates, and you were seeing this all across the board. Nvidia was the same thing, very good green move up, took out the highs. This was more of an orderly pullback to the close of yesterday, and continued up again. And I can go on and show you even Disney today had a very nice chart. Broke out above the first bar high and had kind of a very strong directional move all day. So there were a lot of stocks to the upside, which was kind of the bias if you were looking, around the board for something to trade. But the SPY itself had a nice green day and follow through from yesterday. And the bias was always to the upside, no matter how you played it. Now, in terms of what happens now, I still see big green 2 up weeks, so we're kind of in continuation mode on the upside. Always an opportunity for a little bit of consolidation, a little maybe minor pullback before we continue higher. On the monthly chart, we are 2 up here on the monthly chart. This was this green reversal bar last month, 2 up, and targeting the highs here of September. And if we look on the weekly chart, that's kind of working up towards these highs. And quite frankly, given that we broaden out to the downside down here, not only could we take out this, but it is possible we could be targeting this area, until things change. And just that's kind of my final point here. As I've been watching this reversal on the weekly chart that started way back, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago now. Well, 4 to 5 weeks ago, I was saying that we're now heading up. We took out kind of a key pivot low here and reversed up, and now I'm just looking for a weekly chart to turn down before I really get bearish. Now there were a couple of opportunities, as we came up. So just kind of what I'm getting at is we had a 2 up bar here. This was actually a 3 bar, so this was not really a reversal bar. This was just broadening action to the downside, and now we're continuing to the upside. So we never have gotten a reversal signal on the weekly chart. The 2 trades that looked good to the short side that maybe we would be continuing lower was as this weekly chart broadened to the downside, there was definitely a failed up move to the high of the previous week. We came to the midpoint of that bar. So that happened right in here. There was a very good short trade to kind of fail on the upside, took out the midpoint of the prior week, which kind of signaled the move down. So we had that action there. And then just the other day before this gap up, there was definitely kind of a bear flag developing, and this 2 down day looked promising, maybe for continuation lower. It was a good trade, by itself on Wednesday. But even then, I was pointing out we were still just inside of this broadening bar. So it wasn't really a reversal bar on the weekly chart, even though we were going to play the downside and see if we can get maybe a 3-2 continuation to the downside. Instead, obviously, we had a big gap up the next day and then follow through today. So we still continue the green trend up. So in other words, in the big picture, as we head up to this target and this target possibly, the only thing that's really going to deter me from that is if we get some kind of weekly, reversal bar, which kind of is more like this, 2 up, 2 down week right in here. Again, another 2-up failure here where we come below the midpoint of a prior week. This green bar looks a little too big for that. I mean, you never know, it can start up and come down really strong, but I'm not anticipating that. I'm anticipating follow through higher into next week in some form. I still think, there's some exhaustion risk now as we've headed up for a while. We have a fair value gap now between the high of this bar and the low of that bar to pull back into at any time. But any of these pullbacks, as long as the weekly chart stays up, should resolve back to the upside towards our bigger picture targets, which is here and here until the weekly chart changes. So again, pretty this is the type of day I guess I was sort of expecting consolidation, bias to the upside, and that's sort of what developed, but it was actually even a little stronger than that. And that's what's going on now as we continue to broaden higher. And then if we really zoom this out, who knows, maybe we're going to be taking out this area up here in a very strong rally. But we'll continue to stay biased to the upside for now, but again, a little exhaustion risk in the short term. So next week we'll just kind of see what kind of daily bars form here. The ideal daily bar would be something, a little pullback and then a move to continue higher. And we'll be a little nimble as to how many days in a row we can head up, but you never know. So let's just see. The main thing is for the month of November, we still, I think, have plenty of time to get up here, even maybe up here. So let's see how the month continues to the upside.